We know how a television murder mystery is supposed to work. A brilliant detective arrives at a pristine crime scene, spots a clue the local cops missed, and begins assembling a clean, intellectual puzzle. It's a comforting formula because it promises that chaos can be contained by logic. HBO's Mayor of Easttown rejects every piece of that formula, starting with its lead investigator. Kate Winslet's Mayor wears her exhaustion right on her face. There is no glossy makeup or designer wardrobe to separate her from the grim reality of her environment. Instead of a methodical genius, Mayor is a physical wreck. She vapes constantly, she chugs Rolling Rock beer, her autopsies are brief, clinical, and completely devoid of melodrama. When her own daughter-in-law threatens to fight for custody of her grandson, Mayor doesn't rely on brilliant deduction to solve the problem. She abuses her police power to plant drugs on her. She operates under the suffocating weight of a 25-year-old high school basketball championship. In her town, making that single legendary shot earned her the nickname Lady Hawk, locking her into the role of a static, heroic icon. The residents expect her to save the day, exactly as she did when she was 18. Mayor treats her badge as a convenient shield. She navigates the investigation with a bone-deep exhaustion, using the law as a tool to distance herself from a reality she can no longer control. This diagram shows the psychological mechanism driving Mayor's entire investigation, a concept therapists call displacement aggression. After her son Kevin died by suicide in the family attic, Mayor locked the door and refused to process the loss. Instead, all of her unresolved grief is funneled outward into her obsessive hunt for the town's murderer. Looking at this visualization, you can see how the unsolved cases function as a necessary psychological buffer. As long as Mayor is agonizing over the daughters other people have lost, she never has to climb those stairs and face the physical space where she failed her own son. The internal pressure builds, masked by distraction. Mayor's emotional paralysis mirrors the exact condition of the community around her. Easttown is filled with people making increasingly desperate choices to keep their heads above water, entirely incapable of moving past their collective traumas. Solving the murder of Aaron McManaman requires Mayor to navigate a social landscape where every interaction is colored by long-term, unaddressed trauma. Finding the killer means first confronting the emotional architecture that keeps the town in place. The geography of Easttown acts as an active, suffocating force. This is a post-industrial Pennsylvania ghost town, haunted by shuttered mills, the shadow of the opioid epidemic, and generations of economic stagnation. The cinematography actively reinforces this feeling through a style you could call soggy naturalism. The environments are bathed in the flat, gray light of a damp winter. Kitchens are sticky and cluttered, windshields are fogged over, and physical spaces press inward. You see this decay in the constant visual motif of rust. The corroding steel mills and weathered cars are a direct reflection of the people themselves, slowly breaking down over time, serving as a heavy reminder of a prosperous past that is never coming back. The town's water sources emphasize this sense of entrapment. Aaron's body is discovered in the creek, and the pet turtle Drew finds there requires a highly specific artificial habitat to survive, mirroring the fragile, neglected environment of Easttown's children. In a toxic ecosystem like this, achieving peak success as a teenager is a curse. The residents are locked into the memories of who they used to be, entirely unable to adapt or grow past their shared stagnation. Every adult in the story is defined by an agonizing, futile attempt to shield their children. Parents lie, cover up crimes, and break the law, driven by a desperate need to protect their kids from suffering the same traumas they did. This emotional lockdown is a hereditary trait. Mayor's defensive stoicism and deflective humor are learned behaviors, passed down directly from her mother, Helen. They survive in a house defined by suicide, by refusing to speak about it. Mayor's approach to survival is using the law to avoid her family. Her best friend, Lori Ross, takes the exact opposite path. Lori chooses family over the truth, weaponizing her loyalty to cover up a horrific crime, to keep her son out of prison and preserve the illusion of a stable home. This network diagram illustrates the dark side of Easttown's tight-knit culture. In a Delaware County working-class neighborhood where everyone is someone's cousin or former teammate, information should flow freely. But as the visual shows, when truth tries to travel through the system, the rigid bonds of communal loyalty actively block it. The insularity prevents real healing. When a community is entirely enmeshed, basic decency acts as a cover for silence. To pursue justice in Easttown, an investigator has to commit an act of devastating personal betrayal. A standard police procedural ends with a triumphant arrest. The perpetrator goes to jail, the detective is vindicated, and moral order is restored to the community. Mare's final arrest offers none of that relief. The revelation that Ryan Ross is the killer transforms the investigation into a communal autopsy. A child, driven by a desperate, misguided need to protect his family's stability, attempted to scare away his father's mistress with a stolen gun. It is the ultimate expression of the town's failed parental shield. Mare doing her job correctly comes at a catastrophic cost. On one side, she executes the law. On the other, she entirely destroys her best friend's life, severing the one genuine emotional connection she had left in town. The show already proved that traditional heroism doesn't work here. When the young, optimistic, out-of-town detective Zabel tries to play the brave hero during a standoff, he is immediately shot and killed. The savior archetype only creates violent collateral damage. Catching the killer brings zero restoration to the town. It merely takes the unbearable suffering of one family and transfers it onto another. Because the arrest provides absolutely no catharsis, the actual climax of the story happens in silence. It occurs after the case is closed, when Mare goes home to an empty house. She walks into her hallway, pulls down the folding stairs, and finally begins the heavy, agonizing climb up into the attic where her son died. This physical space serves as the ultimate metaphor for the entire series. It is the locked room where we store the unbearable grief we refuse to look at, hoping that if we ignore it long enough, the pain will fade. The climb is difficult. The series refuses to offer a tidy resolution or suggest that opening the door will magically cure her depression. Some wounds remain permanent. Healing comes only through honest companionship in the dark. Mare of Easttown suggests that recovery requires the immense courage to look directly at what was lost, learning to carry those ghosts with grace instead of hiding behind the demands of the law.